Hey everyone, welcome to this session on choosing quality childcare. And thank you, of course, for joining us at the 2025 Parent Reset. I'm very excited about this session because I know that this matters to parents just in general, whether you've just had a baby or you've got a child who needs some childcare in the summertime or for spring break. So I am joined by Julie Brooks, who has a lot of experience in childcare, and we're going to talk about choosing quality childcare in this session. So, Julie, welcome. Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll jump right into our conversation.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Julie Brooks. I am mom of two and a wife. I have a little pup too. I'm a dog mom. And I have a childcare center. So I've been a provider for 5 years at a center, and then I have also done a couple years of in-home as well.
Awesome. Perfect. So let's jump into the conversation. So, what are the top three qualities that parents should look for when evaluating a daycare or childcare provider, and why do these things matter?
So first and foremost, I would say look up your center's license. Look up their inspection reports. If they're a non-licensed in-home, obviously you can't do that. But if you're going to a center, look up their license for their reports. It's a good guide, I think, to start with questions you have on your tour. So you can ask questions of what's on there. So is it a report of supervision, of discipline? So start there, look up their license online. It's all public information. And then once you get there, is it a safe environment? I would look first and foremost, is the center locked down? How do you gain access in there to make sure all the kids are safe? And then the staff engagement when you get there. Do they seem like they're engaging well with the staff or with the kiddos? Or are they just sitting around? Are they doing activities, or again, are they just standing and talking? So engagement for the staff is very important as well. So
I love that. I didn't look up the state report for here. I didn't even realize I could do that. So I think that that's like huge. I did look for engagement when choosing quality childcare. And I will say, like, it was hard for me to make the decision to put my kids in daycare as well. So definitely looking at engagement sold me. And I love that you say, like, ask the questions about what you see in the report.
yeah.
What about reviews?
Yeah, absolutely. Look at reviews too. Everybody's going to have their own experience for sure. Some policies that a center has isn't going to sit well with others, and some like them. So reviews are good and bad. I think it's a good gauge as well. But again, if you look at them beforehand, you can ask questions. Say, hey, I saw this review, this incident maybe happened. I know you can't give all the information, but can you just elaborate a little bit? So always asking those questions, and taking your own thought and feel from your tour is very important, while still considering the other things you've seen. Still take in what you've seen and what you've asked. I think that's very important. And how they answer those. Do you feel like they're real, genuine answers? Especially those licensing reports, because they can have everything on them, and they can be big and they can be small, and they can, so definitely ask those questions.
I like that. Yeah, I remember listening for how staff replied when I would like pop in, right, to drop off my paperwork, or when I went for my tour. If I heard children crying, how did staff respond?
Yeah.
Because, like, did that go against what you just told me y'all do here, right? And of
Right.
course, every single time I hear like very like gentle, comforting staff, right? Every single time. Even now, we've been there for almost 2 years, right? But that mattered to me because I'm bringing my infant. I want to know, like, are you just letting kids cry it out or not? Or like, what's the engagement looking like and the supervision looking like for, the toddlers who just learned to walk, and, they look like they're trying to escape. Like, are there, like, can they get out? No, they can't, right? So I love that.
For sure.
What are some red flags that parents should be aware of when touring a daycare and interviewing the potential provider? I know you mentioned asking some questions, but what are just some like big red flags?
So I would say on their inspection reports, if it's you can typically see if there's not background checks being done on your employees. So that's huge. Those have to be done, so you know who you're sending your child to, who's watching your children. Um, is it a supervision issue? Whether that's a ratio issue, or are they being left inside, all the stories you see on the media? Are they being left inside vans? Are they being left outside? So supervision, I think, again, ask them to explain it. Sometimes centers do self-report as well. So if they transition from one room to the next, if a child was left behind, that is a supervision issue. A little different than being left in a van, but it's definitely a supervision issue. So again, knowing the situation as much as you can is best. So inspection report is huge. The admin's body language and their demeanor when you tour, I think, is very important. So if they don't give a tour, for one, which I have had happen before I opened, my husband and I, for our kids, went and toured a center, and the director didn't want to give a tour. So she went and found a teacher to do it. To me, that just means the director is maybe not as hands-on. So does she help her set staff? Does she support her staff? The staff are who are taking care of your children, so they need that support. So what's their demeanor? Are they friendly with the kids? Do the kids run up to them? Do they love on them just as much as the teachers? Do they have relationships with those kids? Because they should very much be involved just as much as all the other members on the team. So definitely body language and demeanor for your admin. If they're not involved, I think that's a red flag. And then, do the kids look happy? If they don't look happy in the center, what's going on? Are they bored? Are they just being told to sit down? Are they tired of doing whatever? Obviously kids are kids, so they're not going to want to do everything, but are they genuinely happy? Because if they're not, then you probably don't want to send your children there.
Yeah, those are really good. The center director, right? Like, one is standing out to me because it's, well, if you got adult humans in there, what if they get sick? What if they have a family emergency, have to leave? Like, the director is likely the person who's going to step in. And if they don't know the kids and they don't want to give the tour, likely not interacting, right? And so, like, that, I think that's like a really, really good one. Y'all are hearing my kid. Hold on one second.
What'd you say?
I'm like, y'all are hearing my kid in the background. He's fighting an ass. So here today. So like mommy and Nana daycare a little bit. So beyond having a like safe place for children while their parents work, what are some of the like developmental, social, and emotional benefits of quality childcare?
So just like you said, that social interaction with others is huge for children. Starting them young, definitely. This generation is totally different than ours growing up. There's a lot of technology involved, so it's not as hands-on. So just starting your children young, having that social interaction, even if it isn't in home compared to a center or a shared nanny, there's still kids involved. So it just helps them learn how to share, be around others, and know how to interact with them. Behaviors, helping share their emotions, how to handle a situation if they're upset, how to manage that. If they need to be down in a calm down area, great. If they know how to talk it out or express it out, if they're old enough. So that social interaction is huge. It also gives a set schedule. So at home, we can kind of get thrown off. We just kind of go about our day. Some families have structure, yes, but at a center, so like ours, we start our curriculum at 9. And so it keeps those kiddos on task to understand transitions as well. So once they go off to school in kindergarten, they're going from subject to lunch to PE to specials. And then as they get older, they're going from classroom to classroom to classroom. So just starting that structure at such a young age helps them understand transitions as well. And then they could be going to see other people in a different classroom. So developmentally, interactions, social behaviors, schedules are very important. So I think that's really good too. They pick up from their peers, good and bad. If one friend's hitting, they might come home hitting, but they pick up good things from their peers too. Walking, crawling at a young age. They might not be doing it yet, and they see kiddos in their room running around. It's going to encourage them to try more. Eating with a spoon, even sitting at lunch table, they see their friend using a spoon, they want to try it. Let me get that spoon. So also good and bad from their peers. So
yeah. Those are huge ones because my kids both didn't want to walk. They're like, why? Because y'all pick me up. I'm sure that's what they were thinking, right? Like, why
yeah,
would I crawl or walk? Like, that makes no sense. And literally
yeah,
within days of being at daycare, they're crawling and walking.
yeah,
Or, their speech development would like start,
yeah,
especially for my daughter. But what I loved about our daycare center too, when thinking about like the developmental, social, and emotional parts, is my son has autism and my son, right?
good,
They just naturally adjusted to what his needs were. I
good.
at home was like kind of monitoring these things and thinking like, okay, developmentally, like, there's just some things he hasn't done. But I was able to ask them and also realize like they didn't treat him differently. He still did art. He still sat at the table and like did the activities, even though he's not responding back. He was still a part of it. They
Mm-hmm.
still loved on him. So when he started ABA, right, like we had good information from the center, and they miss him.
Mm-hmm.
He's been gone over a year,
Good.
still asking
Aw.
about him, and his progress. And sister still goes there and she's thriving,
Mhm.
right? But if I ever needed childcare, I'm like, I know I can take him back there because they don't
Good.
treat children differently. They
That's good.
support parents when kids have to leave, and I've seen it. I've seen kids like move away, supportive, right? The director and the teachers were,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, I like that's cool.
Yeah. And that's
Parents feel
involvement.
welcome.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they know parents feel welcome to say, my birthday's coming up, and I know these are the kids he plays with all the time. They invite, and I'm like, that's really cool, So,
Yeah.
um, like developing the social beyond that. I also learned things that my kids could do that they weren't doing at home. I get the
Mhm.
pictures and the video, and I'm like, they can eat a
Right.
spoon.
Right.
Eating
Yeah.
on plates every day. You're
Yeah.
like they're not doing that at home with me. And then I'm like, okay, you're gonna start doing it at home with me because clearly you know how to do it. I had no idea.
Right.
So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. They're
So
brave at school.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And kids of all ages. Our daycare takes kids up to age 12, and so
Mhm.
it's spring break and older kids are there, and there's place for
Yep.
them. It's developmentally appropriate, which is cool.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. How can parents balance affordability with quality childcare? And are there any resources or financial options they should consider? And I wanted to talk about this because I know a lot of times people are like, okay, daycare is really expensive. And like,
Mhm.
yes, it is. And
Mhm.
so people are like, how do I afford this when I have to go to work and I only make a certain amount of money? And so I wanted to make sure we talked about this.
Mhm.
And wanted just like got your perspective on it.
Yeah. First and foremost, Bree, it is expensive sometimes. There are assistant programs out there, though. Most states, I think, have child care assistance through like their Department of Health and Human Services. So applying for that, I would definitely check out the income guidelines first before you do. States are different, but they can be minimal. So don't get your hopes up. But that's an option to get on childcare assistance. So that will help pay for it, whether it's just a portion or if it's all of it. Definitely an option. Check with your employer as well. A lot of them will have FSA accounts that you can use. And so you'll just get statements from your provider and your employer will reimburse you for it. So check with your employer. And also just explore your options. So centers are going to be priced different than in homes. In homes are priced different than nannies. So I think, just going off of what you want out of any of that and then making the price work. It can be expensive. But you can't put a price tag on your kids. So, do you want them in a safe environment? Do you want them learning? Do you want them eating healthy? We want that all for our kids. So picking what you kind of can make work, also in the environment that you want to make work. And I think you'll figure it out. Just like we do everything else. But there are assistance programs, and then your employers also should offer something as well.
I like that. I like that you also touched on like there are options. You got the nanny, you got in-home daycare, you've got a center, you got different types of centers, right? And so
Yep.
just looking at that and thinking about what you wanted, I really kind of lucked out. I had been like exploring Montessori, and I'm like, okay, what is this? Because I started buying toys for my kids, and what was coming up is Montessori toys, and I'm like, okay, let me figure out what this is, what this means. And lo and behold, the daycare that worked within my budget that I chose also has a Montessori preschool, where
Okay.
my kids could get there. So I'm like, oh, like not only is this in my neighborhood, it's affordable, but it also has this thing that I've been looking into, to kind of think about. And so I love
Yeah.
that. But we did in home. I had a nanny. I literally did all of them to like
Yeah.
figure out
Yeah.
what's going to work best, like for my situation, and found what worked
And
best.
deciding if you can do just part-time even. So, between you and your significant other, can you guys make just part-time work? Do you have grandma and grandpa that can maybe take a day or two? Part-time's cheaper. So that's an option as well.
Yeah, I did drop in too, like for a
Yeah.
while, like when I'm like, I'm not emotionally ready to let them go.
Yeah.
Let me just drop in like a day or two. And then I realized, okay, 2 days of drop in ends up almost being the cost of like a whole week.
Mhm.
Let me just ease into it. And they were super
Yeah.
helpful in like letting me ease into it too. But I love the part time because I
Yeah.
know a lot of people do like a half day, right? And
Yep.
they do part time, and it works for the schedule. Like mom or dad works overnight. They just need time to sleep.
Mhm.
They get a
Yep.
nap, right? They get their sleep in. They come get the kid or whatever. So
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. So what are some like questions? I know you mentioned like on the tour questions that can be asked. What are some key questions parents should ask the daycare provider to ensure that their values and their parenting style align, but also like that aligns with the care their child is going to receive from this provider?
Yeah. So on my list, first and foremost, I have staff background checks. I know I touched on it earlier. Um, you'd be surprised they don't always get done, unfortunately. So just double checking that every staff member that's on site, even the owners or the admin or whoever's in there, is background checked, because there are strict guidelines on that. So if there's something on their record, they should not be there, and they wouldn't be there if they're background checked. So making sure that's done, making sure everybody's CPR certified, just in case if there's an emergency. All hands are on deck. It's not somebody outside that needs to be inside. So every employee is. I think that's a good question. And then I would ask about their learning approach and their curriculum. There are a ton of different styles that are out there. So just asking what their style is, if it's hands-on, if it's Montessori, child-led, whatever you want to make sure you continue with. Because if you go somewhere where they don't follow that, then you're just not going to be happy. And you're always going to ask questions, and there's always going to be problems. So what is their learning approach? Is there outside free time play? I think that's very big for kids to have a break during the day.
Yeah.
So making sure, weather permitting, that they're able to go outside, run some steam off, or an indoor play area, one or the other or both, making sure they have some free time to themselves. And then for academics, so centers are typically grouped by age. So if a child just turns 3, there's, generally going to go up to preschool. Well,
Mhm.
is your child, maybe if they're not quite ready, do they still move up? Do they stay down? Or if they move up, will that teacher still accommodate them in that classroom, if they're maybe not quite to the level of half the other classroom? I
Yeah.
think that's important because I think they should still move up, just my opinion. But that
Mhm.
teacher should then be able to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Not taking away from anybody else, but being able to give that one-on-one time still, in that classroom to keep them going. Even if they don't meet where everybody is, that's okay. They all learn at different paces, on their own time. So but making sure that teacher is prepared for that in that next classroom.
Yeah.
Even your babies,
Yeah.
if they're crawling, not even rolling over maybe yet, are they going to go up to the next one where there's babies walking and running and,
Yeah.
um, so see what they determine for the next move up in the room is, just to make sure your baby stays safe. Um, and then is it an open door policy?
Mm.
So can you come in at 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and just check in on your baby? If they say no, I think that would be a red flag for me. it should be an open door policy. Not that you want to interrupt schedules. So if it's nap time and your kiddo's older, I can understand maybe just peeking in, not waking up the whole classroom. But making sure you can pop in at any time that you would want, just to check in. And having that access is huge.
I love that. One question I just thought of too, what is the typical age where you want to consider some level of childcare for your children? Like, what's that range?
When you find out you're pregnant, find it. Some places will have wait lists, so you do want to start your search pretty early. I think if you know you're going to stay home for a while, you have more time. Maybe you don't want to send your kid until they're a toddler. You have more time. The transition can also be harder if you wait until they're a toddler. They've had so much time home with you at home. They're used to you. So it could be harder, not impossible though. I would say if you wait longer, give it time to transition. If you start, don't pull your kiddo out 1 week later because they still might be adjusting. So give it a good month, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, start as soon as you know you want to go in a center because there could be wait lists. But if you can start at the infant stage, if you know you eventually want to be somewhere, even in home, then I would start at the infant stage. The adjustment is just easier.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, good. All right, perfect. Thank you so much for all of these tips. Are there any resources that you would recommend parents check out other than the state website and Department of Health and Human Services, I believe you said, for financial assistance? Any other resources that parents can check out as they're choosing quality childcare?
Those are two big ones. And then I would definitely just say maybe your local groups on social media, I think is going to be a big one. You can ask advice like we talked about earlier. Still take your own tour, I would say, because when you walk in, you'll know yes or no. So still do your own tours, but still chime in on those Facebook groups, Instagram groups, and just ask questions there. Word of mouth is really big too. So just the community, I would say.
Good. One thing I'll say as a person who's done this twice and it all, trust your intuition as a parent.
Absolutely.
Really trust your intuition as a parent. Like you said, you will know. And then when you feel like something needs to change or you have a question, trust your intuition, ask the questions, seek out the resources. And sometimes you're gonna have to take reviews with a grain of salt, right? Sometimes what you just saw, if it feels ooh, that feels really different than what I just felt, it truly could be a one-off thing. You'll want to monitor, you'll want to ask those questions, but trust your gut. When it feels it's time for something different for whatever reason it is, be ready to trust that and do what you need to do.
Absolutely. And when you ask questions or you ask for changes and you don't get any movement, time to make a change.
Yep.
For sure.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much, Julie, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for, of course, checking out the Parent Reset Summit. I hope that you got some good insights here for childcare for your children of all ages, right? Even once they go to elementary school or maybe even the beginning of middle school, you still need some childcare. Hopefully, that helps you. So, make sure you tell a friend. Stay tuned for the next few days of the summit. You are about halfway done. Thank you, Julie, again, and everyone in the next one. I hope you enjoyed that session. Make sure that you stay in touch with us for more content on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. It is ParentPorch, ParentPorch. Also follow me on all platforms at UncapedMama, UncapedMama. Continue to stay connected with us by email. Make sure you check your email for some goodies as well, and to stay up to date on all of our events and happenings and to be ready for your next session. See you in the next one.